Welcome, everyone. I will call together the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for Wednesday, September 28th. It is a little after noon, and we are meeting in the beautiful Dunaway Room at the new Pickens County Library renovation. We will start with manager's comments. Are there additions or deletions to today's agenda?
Yes, we have a couple changes. First, we'd like to table the minutes for September 14th. We've identified some corrections that need to be made in those before they're approved by the board, so we will bring those back to you. Just as a note, it is already noted on the agenda, but item number 3, under individual considerations, application for a new marijuana retail grow license submitted by Sopris Verde will be tabled to a date uncertain. Still working through some of the questions I believe that the board raised last time they were in front of you.
Now, let me ask, as a public hearing, do I need to open and close that public hearing before we retable to a new date uncertain?
No, you do. You're talking about the marijuana application?
Yes.
No, you do not.
Okay, thank you.
And then I would just note, although it is not applicable to today's agenda, just for the public, that we are canceling our regular meeting of October 12th
Okay.
in recognition of Yom Kippur. And we are getting notices out to the public and folks affected by that. So,
Okay. Thank you for that update. We appreciate that. Mr. Ely?
As a last item on the agenda, potentially into the I guess that wouldn't fit under land use action so much, but potential reconsideration of the caucus vote from last
Okay.
week.
I have a feeling there may be some people here in the audience who would bring that up during public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And I'm hoping that perhaps we can entertain that conversation at that time so that they don't have to stay till the end of our agenda for that discussion. Okay?
And an executive session at the end of the meeting to continue the discussions from yesterday.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, that being all the changes to the agendas, do we have any public comment today? Let's have MZVC go first.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I just have several little things, and then I'll be on my way to Oz. Okay, anyway, nomenclature is MZV's the third. All right, the first thing is what I would like to see this board do is instruct its staff to send press releases out to periodicals that normally it doesn't, and that it should, no matter what, whether you consider it, that it's just provincial news. All right, so what I'm saying is that send it out to the major periodicals in terms of United States of America, LA Times, New York Times, Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera. Also, when it comes to the major business periodicals, like the newspapers, like the Wall Street Journal, you got a whole bunch of others to send it to. Whether you think it's relevant or not, the information, somehow, of course, it does tie into business, and some stories should evolve from it somehow if you do it over a period of time consistently. Taking that on a little bit further, then also you have your foreign periodicals, all right? So you have your foreign newspapers like the Times in London and whatever. I think it has some letters published in there. So anyway, you have the Times, you have the German newspapers, Zeitung or something like that. I had met one of the publisher editor at the Getty Museum one time and all that. Well, also they have business newspapers too. What I'm saying in the end is something that you're making these people aware at all times. If some stories come about, or if all of a sudden they're going to contact you about some things, or your staff members, well, you've sent it out there. Also, it's a good PR thing no matter what. All right, next, and I'm moving along very quickly, is that, look, you might not have staff, but the counselor here might be able to tell you how you can structure it in such a way that you might have some volunteers help you to do some research, write some quick reports. Now, I know you don't have a lot of time, so you could try to structure those reports to be either 10 pages or 20 pages at the most. All right, this is volunteer. Some people, like Mike Ireland, does it on his own. All right, but you might find some people who are willing to. All right, and that way, each of you have some staff members. All right, don't worry about it. I mean, talk over myself. All right, and so that would help you to manage things, for you to stay ahead of the curve, also make much better decisions. Remember, things don't have to be perfect. You can do a certain amount of research or whatever else. We all have our problems. All right, now the thing is like you still do have agriculture going on here in terms of agrarian society, whether it's gentlemen or however it might be. Now, I had learned from the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis, which is the 9th district. One of the things the farmers, the coders and all that, they were being encouraged to do was creating what? Gourmet products to sell. Gourmet dairy products and meat products, etc. So what I'm saying is that somehow with the agrarian society that you do have here, they begin to encourage them to do stuff like that. At the same time, what happens, it could bring more money into your coffers. All right, I'm looking at it from that angle too. Also, I guess I'll push this stuff on Garfield County. Now, when it comes for the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis, which is the 9th district, they are good on a lot of studies that they do, especially that Fed Gazette, and that might be out of publication right now, but you can go back years on the internet and get a lot of information in terms of things that you will find that are very useful for your county. I mean, that's how I walked into your county with the information. Now, the man who's president, he may take special attention to you, because if it wasn't for him managing the TARP program, your so-called wealthy people would have been in the dumps, all right? And that program actually came from President Hoover. But what happens, his name is Neil Kashkari. He did run to be governor of California, and he did lose. But at the beginning of this year, he was made president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank. And if you correspond with him and all that, I think you'll get some things, but also correspond with the Kansas City Federal Reserve, because they even do special things on Colorado itself.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. As Ben Franklin said, time is money, and let the money come in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Are there additional public comments for the meeting today? Please come forward and identify yourself for the record, Joy, and make your comments.
Am I okay here? Can you hear me? Okay.
I think so.
This is short and sweet. I basically felt responsible to be here because what I had sent on September 13th with glitches here and there did not make it to you guys by the September 14th meeting. So I felt like I needed to show up. I was born with stage fright, so I'm going to read the thoughts I put together last night, and this will only take a couple minutes. Okay. I live at 186 Old Pond Way, Snowmass, Colorado, aka Heaven on Earth. Regarding the approval of the Snowmass Creek Caucus, I hope you have all received and read the survey and letters that were sent September 13th and again on September 26th. I was informed that this information did not get processed before the meeting on the 14th of September, therefore that's why I am here. My main point from the very beginning, as driven and organized as this group was, they attempted but failed to ensure all qualified electors and non-resident real property owners of the date, time, place, and purpose of the July 11th meeting as required by the home charter. It was their responsibility, not the HOAs, not the Road Association, not the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus, or word of mouth, to directly notify all eligible voters. The list used at the vote to verify eligibility was inadequate at best, disenfranchising eligible voters. Only some examples: Teresa Hall, Buddy, and Teresa Sin. Only some examples. Notification. The largest land holding, the Harveys, did not receive that 4th of July notification directly from the group for the July 11th meeting. Regarding my survey, it definitely was a little messy. I did it before and after work in a 6-day time. I worked 6 days in a row, called people in the morning, and then after work, went door to door. And this was not to influence how they would vote. It was only to ask why they did not vote. Okay, regarding the survey, and the Harveys not being notified, this represents 12 votes. Again, regarding my survey, a total of 33 eligible voters did not receive the July 4th email. Notification as in timely matter, as in timely notification, 1 week notice. This vote, as David Heiser said to you in his letter that was received 2 days after the 14th, was hastily and strategically scheduled. It was scheduled 1 week before the Capitol Creek Caucus meeting. This meeting would have served as an information public venue as to the issues, pros, cons. I was there, helpful solutions of the conflicts that had emerged. There was a mediator, and they really were productive in that meeting, and I think everyone on both sides should have been at that meeting. I think a lot would have been worked out, even though the anger level was so extremely intense. I also, being me, was interested in how far in advance the Deaf Camp venue had been reserved, just out of curiosity. They, in all fairness to them, would not divulge that information. I am wondering, could we have had a 2-week, 3-week, even longer notice of that date to vote? This would have given everyone an opportunity, time, to reschedule previous commitments or plans so they could physically attend and have fair representation. I'm doing much better than I thought I would. A 1-week notice simply is not sufficient and is not fair. One last comment. There are still numerous and critical points to consider. Unclear voting instructions. I personally know 3 couples that thought only one person needed to show up to vote representing one household, when that could have been double the votes. The proposed map, which I am not comfortable talking about or representing, and also no one's fault, a breakdown in the communication system resulting in information packets, letters, and my survey not being read in a timely manner. That's no one's fault. Thank you for your time. I respectfully request your reconsideration of the approval of this application, and I am really trying hard to think of solutions for this, not just criticizing everything that went wrong. So that's my next mindset. Thank you.
So Rachel, just for clarification for the public who's listening, this is regarding the separation of the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus, because I don't know if that was ever brought up in what you said, Joyce. So just for clarification.
Thank you. And John Ely, I understand that there has been a request by the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus or the new caucus to both look at a new name, so there's more clarification of the separate caucuses if possible, and that the Harvey family, whose property is divided by both caucuses, has requested to be in one or the other, not divided in half, that they'd like to remain. So there are other requests that have been forthcoming about why we should have a reconsideration.
Yes.
Okay. And just so everyone understands protocol, there is a potential for a reconsideration of the board of any matter that has been considered in the previous meeting. It takes a motion by someone who voted in the affirmative of the motion of the last meeting. It can be seconded by anyone on the board, and then a board majority vote is necessary to reconsider the question. We've heard the requests from Ms. Hartman. We've heard of requests through the attorney's office from others for variations on theme or potential change. And so that is now to the board to decide at this time. Steve, I think you are still conflicted out, but I don't think you have to go too far. We are going to talk about it now. So again, just briefly, I think it's only fair to not make these folks wait till the very end of this agenda today. And I hope it's a brief discussion. If there is reconsideration, it would not be at today's meeting. It would be set for a date certain in the future. So this is a relatively simple question to the board of should we reconsider the prior action. And with that, I would like to hear from board members of what your impressions are.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to reconsider the vote that we took on the 14th to separate the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus into two separate caucuses. And do we need a date certain to set for reconsideration?
You can't pick a date certain right now, and the fact that we have to advertise it.
Okay.
And
So a date
discussing
will
it
be-
at an open discussion isn't sufficient notice to
Okay.
public.
So
So
we
we will
will
set that date.
We will notice the date that we decide
And
on.
the formal motion should be a motion to reconsider the recognition of the Snowmass Caucus, which was what the motion was 2 weeks ago.
Right, correct.
That's my motion. And I voted affirmative to approve that, and I was the swing seat vote on that, so I would rather not have to reopen this, but I think we have enough requests from the affected population that we should do so.
Okay, thank you. Additional board comments? Is there a second to Patty's motion?
Can I second it, since I was in a minority vote?
I believe so.
Actually, our practice is always the motion and the second is from one of the affirmative voting members.
From both
Once the
sides.
motion is on the table, then the entire board
Okay.
gets to vote on it.
I will second, because I voted in the affirmative as well. I'll make a brief statement. I think it's always valuable to take the time on complex issues. Saying that, the standards that we have to judge this by in our code have not changed and will not change. And those are relatively vague criteria. There's no requirement that a mailing have a return receipt requested. There's a lot of nothing there, frankly, about the standards that we have. So a reconsideration is in no way a guarantee of a different outcome. But I do believe that matters of this deserve the time, and I'm more than willing to put in the time. So I will vote for the motion to reconsider. I am not sure when we will schedule or how we will have time. It becomes a very difficult issue because, as we know, some of the voters are part-year residents and may not be able to be in attendance. And again, there may be a different outcome. It's been clear from the beginning that this was a decision that one way or the other was going to make 50% or some very close percent to that unhappy, whatever happened. And I do think that the beginning of healing is not about this board delving into what a homeowners association practices are and whether members of that homeowners association are happy with their homeowners association board. And, you know, there's a lot of rabbit holes that I'm not going to see us go down, or I personally won't go down, because it's just trying to have us settle a dispute between neighbors that we don't really have the grounds to do. We could force folks back in the caucus. We could force or acknowledge the separation. I'm willing to listen, and so I will vote for this motion. Patty?
I want to make another comment. I'm hoping that in the timeframe we have before we set the reconsideration, actual discussion and hearing, that if any other property owners, I don't want us to be, this keep coming back for, now I want in, now I want out, now I want to be over here, and I want to be over there. I like it, so if anybody else is out there who is thinking of switching sides or unhappy with which caucus they've been placed in, to come forward and let us know at the meeting so that we can make a decision that hopefully will finalize this issue.
We haven't set a date. Today, we're
Well,
just
we will
voting
do
for
a
the
notice.
reconsideration, and we will work with our attorney's office for the proper noticing of that meeting. George or Michael, any comments? Okay, I will call the vote in 1 second. I was just thinking about something. Oh, I do want to say this. At the end of the last meeting, which was lengthy and passionate on both sides, I think I said to Patty after the vote that, if I'd heard from 2 or 3 of the people who had been in support of the separation saying that they had had outreach with the original caucus and they changed their minds and that outreach and that rebuilding of the relationship had begun, that would have influenced my vote. And in that hearing, that was the one thing I didn't hear from anybody. And I would strongly encourage that effort be what goes forward before our reconsideration. Because the reconsideration isn't going to heal this one way or the other, regardless of the decision that's eventually made. But I want that outreach to neighbor is the only way to start to heal this. So given that, again, if there's any other comments, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? 1 nay. Noted for the record. Thank you. We will now move on to the rest of the agenda. Thank you very much.
Is there any of the public?
Oh, there's no public comment on this. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. I thought you were commenting on that issue, but public comments are welcome. Please come forward, and then I'll ask for anyone else who has public comments for us at this meeting.
Hello, I'm Leslie Thomas, and I got a call from London from the neighbors to the Deer Creek property, Marty Slumberger and Linda Wog. They were very worried that they were out of town, and they just wanted me to pass on a couple of their comments.
Okay.
They don't intend to miss these meetings. First of all, they're very excited about having Parks and Wildlife live next door and help with that property and wildlife study go on up there, and they are also concerned that kind of an effort is made that's somehow documentable. If that's camera, I realize Curtis is one person and he's got a big area to work in. So if that's cameras or if he needs help or volunteer help, whatever, that would be really appreciated, especially for all those canyons, because one example I'll give you from doing a wildlife study of my own, managing a wildlife study of my own for 6 years in an 8,000 acre area nearby. There's this misperception about where the elk, for instance, that's just one species, calves. It does not just calve in the aspen. It calves in the oak where there's food and water. And they spread out to calve rather than all be together. So that's just one example of something like that. And that's not something you would know unless you really spent quite a bit of time walking around and checking things out. So that's really it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That is on our agenda today for a first reading. And as I understand it, unless this agenda is printed wrong, there will be a public hearing on that October 12th. And so if the Schlumbergers are back in town and care to attend then, but we appreciate your input now. Are there any other public comments on items today? There being none, I will close that public comment session and return to commissioner comments.
Oh, Rachel, correction, there will not be a regular meeting on October 12th, so it'll be the following regular meeting, which I don't have the date in front of me.
That's correct. That is going to be renoticed and moved to further 2 weeks out. Our board last year made a decision that we did not want to hold a regular meeting on a high holy holiday for those of the Jewish faith, and it somehow got mixed when we were setting our agendas for the year, and we have corrected that, and we are not going to be holding a meeting on that day. So any business that was set up for the 12th is going to be rescheduled to the next regular meeting date and renoticed as necessary. So our apologies to anyone who we've confused their schedules. But it's better to make just one mistake than two. And going forward, that meeting would have been a mistake. Again, we will now go back to other commissioner comments.
I would just like to see this meeting move forward because it's so beautiful outside. I think we all need to get out there.
Yeah, that's true. Steve, anything? No? George or Michael, any comments? I will just make a couple of brief comments. One, I wish good luck to all the players who are coming up for the Hockey Mountain High tournaments this weekend at the City of Aspen's holding. It's always a great event, and glad to see the fall colors lining up perfectly for all those out-of-towners who are coming up here. And the second is to note that we have a major election coming up very soon, and that I would like to remind the public to please be sure to get registered to vote, or to double-check your registration if you've changed your place of residence. This is a mail-in ballot. You will be mailed a ballot, and it will not be forwarded. They are not allowed to be forwarded. They will be returned to the clerks, and then you might not notice that you just didn't get a ballot in the mail. So you can go to pitkinvotes.com to check on your current registration status, your mailing address. If you're going to be out of town, you can request your absentee ballot be sent to your out-of-town location through that. Or you can go to the website Go Vote Colorado. But everyone should weigh in on this election. Regardless of your personal politics, it matters that you participate. So thank you very much on that.
Rachel, do you have a date when the mail-in ballots will be getting mailed out? I don't remember.
Let's see, October 17th, they will
October
be
17th.
mailing the ballots out to folks. And you can request a mail-in ballot by getting your registration figured out up until October 31st is the last day they will mail a ballot. You can register to vote as a Colorado voter if you have lived in the state for 22 days prior to the election. There is same-day voter registration, but frankly, it's just a lot easier and better if you do it before then. So
So if you
thank
don't get a ballot sometime after the 17th, you can contact the clerk's office and track your ballot, see where it went, and have a replacement sent to you.
Yes, and you're able to track when it's received, when you've mailed it back in. So it's very safe and secure system. We will now move on to the consent items. We are not going to have approval of the minutes of the 14th. They are being pulled for corrections. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of September 6th?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now going to move on to individual consideration items that are first readings and set for a public hearing on October 12th. This item is a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Colorado Parks and Wildlife in regard to the Deer Creek open space.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. And please just everyone identify yourselves for the records as you first speak.
Definitely do that. I'm Gary Tenenbaum. I'm the Director of Open Space and Trails, and I am here with...
Harry Will. I'm the Area Wildlife Manager for Area 8 out of Glimmer Springs, and then Area 8 encompasses Aspen, Vale, Roaring Fork, and Eagle Valleys.
I'm Curtis Tesh. I'm the District Wildlife Manager for the Pitkin area.
Okay. Thank you both for being here.
Great. Well, thank you. And I know we've talked about this with you guys in a work session, and we've also talked to the Open Space Board about it, and we've been working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife now for almost 3 months on how to find a way to collaborate on Deer Creek open space. And Deer Creek open space is in Snowmass Canyon. It's off of Lower River Road, and it's kind of at the mouth of right now a very beautiful canyon, because you can see the aspen trees all up in gold, but it's this beautiful Arbony Gulch, and I put a map up there for you guys to see. And so Lower River Road kind of goes right through the middle of it right here, and the mouth of Arbony Gulch is here, the Roaring Fork River is over here, and Highway 82 is, we put a little 82 on it. So what we're here today to talk about is an intergovernmental agreement between Pitkin County and Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And it's a really unique collaboration. When the Open Space and Trails program of Pitkin County bought Deer Creek Ranch, it had 2 houses on the property. And you can see them on the map as the main house and the CDU. And, you know, open space is not always like, what do we do with houses? And we don't usually, when we get them, we're like, oh no, what are we going to do with them? Some of them are historic, like the ones in Glacier and Emma. And we work with the State Historic Society and our historic preservation officer to figure out ways to protect it. But then we also sometimes get properties that have houses that, you know, were built not historically. And in this one, they're in okay shape. They're not in great shape, but they're in okay shape. And so we were going to go through a management plan to figure out what to do with them. And we were out there with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Forest Service, and our wildlife consultants looking at the wildlife habitat on the property to start looking at the management plan. And amazingly, it was the U.S. Forest Service biologist who looked at Curtis and said, Curtis, why don't you live in one of those houses? Because, as I'll let these guys talk about, finding housing in this valley is very difficult. This is not a new thing, but this idea started to blossom, and I was like, wow, that's a really cool idea. And I worked all of a sudden with Perry and Curtis, and they were like, this could really work with Colorado Parks and Wildlife too. So we have worked on trying to come up with an IGA that's in your packet to basically, we're leasing with government agencies, we do IGAs, but we're leasing to Colorado Parks and Wildlife the main house on the property. And in exchange for leasing that main house, they are going to bring that up to a habitable condition. The septic needed some work, the line needed some work, the house definitely needs some work, and so Colorado Parks and Wildlife would take the full expense for that in return for a 10-year lease on the house. And, you know, for open space, this is an incredible win because we now have a law enforcement officer living on this property. We don't have the capacity right now to plan the management for this property, and the Colorado Parks and Wildlife can help us, you know, really monitor the wildlife coming out of Albany Gulch and up Albany Gulch. And for the community to have the Aspen Area Wildlife Officer actually live in the Aspen area is a huge benefit. Because right now, I think, Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong, you live in Redstone?
Carbondale now.
Oh, Carbondale. So, you know, this will be a really great win. And so before I get too more deep into this, I wanted to let Perry or Curtis or both of them just give you a kind of their perspective on this collaboration.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to publicly thank, the Open Space Board and this Board of County Commissioners for this opportunity, because it's huge. As Gary talked about, finding housing for our officers is extremely difficult for the amount of money we pay them in this kind of a housing market, so it's really tough. And I would like to say that, Gary touched on the benefits of having an officer right here in the area. It's huge because we want our officers to be part of the community. And if you have to live down valley so far that your response time's an hour plus, you just never become part of the community. It's just too tough to do. And I'll just say it. Curtis is a hell of a good game warden, and I would like to see him stay here and be part of this community far into the future. Because if we don't fix the housing situations for our officers, we get like a 3 turnover time. So we constantly keep getting new people, and I can't say enough good about this. We welcome the opportunity to get this house up and livable and get Curtis into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm what Perry said, just how grateful we are for this opportunity and how much I think it's going to benefit the county and the area around it, just having law enforcement, myself and my family living up here. So we really greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Very good. Board member questions or comments? Patty?
Yeah, you didn't mention anything. The other opportunity is the management of the irrigation systems and the pasture area, which you will actually be using for your livestock. So that also is an issue of great importance because then they're right where you need them to be. So we appreciate not just the refurbishing and the house and the wildlife studies, but also the maintenance of the property, weed management, irrigation system, which I guess is pretty complicated, and we're hoping to simplify that. But I think this is a huge win-win for everybody in the community as a whole. So I'm really excited about moving this forward.
Okay. Thank you. Other board member comments? George?
Yeah, I would agree. This coincides with our other newest partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, where we're sharing space over on A Street where they're building to utilize that building and have a ranger there and have that as an information center, but also have our open space and trails being able to use that while we're building our new building. So that's great. And I think also having the wildlife officer at the Deer Creek property will, I think, sort of ease some of the concerns of some of the residents there in terms of to ensure that we, as Open Space and Trails always does, has a very thorough, open management plan process to ensure the best use for those properties. And I guess I would ask you, Perry, this is one of several different gulches that we now have access to going up into the Albany-Kittle Trail. And I would suspect all these different gulches, starting from Beone to Wheatley to Deer Creek, and then right up the street to the
Red Canyon.
to Red Canyon. I would suspect they all are populated with varieties of wildlife, and we need to ensure proper closures and have a better idea in terms of access and proper management use.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. That's correct, and I think the fact that have Curtis living there, what better way to evaluate the use and the wildlife use on the property to evaluate that. You can't get better than living there and seeing it every day. So I think we'll retrieve some valuable information from that.
And for us, I mean, you keep going up Valley, Chaparral, up Lanedo, you start hitting all of these access points to the National Forest where they're all within Curtis's district. And so, we've been working really well with Colorado Parks and Wildlife on all of those because they all have different restrictions. They all have different, we were dealing with Chaparral on what's access is allowed up there and stuff. So this collaboration is huge. We work really well with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And in one piece we didn't really touch on is, trying to find unique ways of using our housing that we actually get on these properties. We're trying to find different ways than, open space in the past. If we looked at it, it's like, okay, first thing, it's open space. We should knock them down. Don't knock the house down. See if we can use it. If they're usable, find these collaborations that help with really critical community needs, and we're solving them through just housing. And this is such a easy win that we're excited to do it.
Thank you. I saw Steve and then back to Patty.
I'm really pleased that we're going to have our wildlife conservation officer living closer to our territory. As a landowner who has hunters camping and hunting on our ranch, we used to see Kevin Wright a lot, but he'd have to travel quite a long ways to get up there, and sometimes it would be not a total emergency situation, but an urgent kind of a situation that we would need to have him come up there and check on something. And just having somebody closer by and having your horses also living close by will make it, I think, a lot better service to all of the people in Pitkin County. And then also just the fact having, it will really help the management and caretaking of this property a whole lot easier for the Open Space and Trails Department. So I'm really pleased with this move.
Okay. Other comments?
Can I?
Oh, Patty.
Yeah, I just want to add, too, that the part of this, I think, is a bonus, is we're creating, in the process, and we'll be creating a management plan for this property. So having the wildlife officer there and having the wildlife study without human intervention into there will be really key to our management plan. And what's the time frame? Because it's close to the public now, based on the need for the management plan. Correct, Gary?
Correct. The Albany Gulch area is closed to the public. The fishing access from the Rio Grande, you can go off the Rio Grande Trail and get to the river.
That was my second
But
one.
you cannot go on any of the orange or the green. That is going to be closed. We're looking right now in the IGA, we put it for 2 years from the date of the signing, so that, in October 2018, we're hoping to have it complete and done. So
Just I wanted the public to know that one side's closed, the other side they can access towards the river. Thank
we'll
you.
make it pretty clear with signage.
Okay.
Thanks, Patty. That was a good comment. Any other board comments? I would just weigh in that, our partnership and the collaboration and support we've had from Colorado Parks and Wildlife in furthering our community goals has always been highly valued. And this is just a new step that kind of builds on that relationship tremendously. I'm really excited, and I greatly appreciate Gary and his staff's kind of working behind the scenes to bring this great idea forward to our board, and your willingness to find the ways to improve the house and things like that. So very happy to be voting in the affirmative. Steve, a final comment, and then we'll accept a motion.
I'd like to move to approve the ordinance approving the IGA between the Colorado Parks and Wildlife on use of Deer Creek open space.
Okay, and let me ask our staff, what date certain will we be moving this to then? It was previously was the 12th.
I think it's the 26th
Yes.
of October.
Okay, to a date certain of October 26th, Steve?
Yes.
In your motion? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you,
time.
guys.
Thanks for coming in, guys.
We're going to expect a little housewarming party at some point.
Yeah,
Barbecue. Big barbecue.
with horseback rides.
Okay. The next item is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Aspen for construction of the Pitkin County Sheriff and Administrative Facility and the Aspen Police Department facility. Thank you, Jody and Dave. Just introduce yourselves for the records and give us an overview.
Jody Smith, the facilities superintendent.
Dave Detweiler. Excuse me.
Thank you.
So this is kind of a day of partnerships. This is a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Aspen and Pitkin County. As you know, the Sheriff's Admin Building is about to begin, as is the Aspen Police Departments. And so this is a resolution and an agreement for us to work together because our properties are so close together. It really does address access, easement, security, utilities, maintenance, housing. They have a housing project going on that property. In addition to parking, we have a fire access that we're building now. That's the disturbance area that you see right now where the utilities are being relocated along with the temporary Sally Port. And then there's finally some cost-sharing opportunities for us, which really do benefit the public. So, and both of our projects. Dave can go over any of those items if you have any questions. And that is it.
And I will point out that this has gone through first reading at City Council with no objections or topics raised. They were in agreement with it.
Okay, and let me just start asking John. John, you guys have reviewed this and are in support of the terms that have been worked out?
Yes, obviously, as the board can see through the language of the document, that it's not a completed discussion, and that the terms that are mentioned in the IGA need to be concluded, and that's the anticipation here. So it's a commitment to continue a discussion on the issues.
And allow the projects to go forward at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, yes, we've been in these conversations now for some time, and really those conversations centered on identifying all of those issues we do need to jointly address as we develop these facilities adjacent to each other, establishing timelines and expectations to address them, and where we could finalize issues at this point in both our projects planning. We did do that. For example, parking is a good example of that, and so we feel good that this puts both the county and the city in the best position possible to move forward smoothly together as we build projects adjacent to each other and connect them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Patty?
Yeah, I did notice that the first 5 points on the Exhibit A will continue to work. Will any of those documents be coming back to us, the easement agreements, the access agreement? I mean, if need be, do we have to approve those next finalized?
Easements, definitely,
Okay.
yes.
And then on items, it's page 3, they're not numbered, of Exhibit A. Item 7, the noise and odors from the jail facility to the new affordable housing. What would be nice is if somewhere it was added that the tenants of those we were given the opportunity to know that they were going to be next to the jail and that these would be issues. You know, we do that at the animal shelter. You need to like dogs if you're going to live there. So not that you need to like detainees if you're going to live there. But you know what I mean. The other one is the housing parking. Where is the parking for those tenants going to be? Do we know that?
The current plan, as I understand it, as it's been explained to us, is there are two short-term 30-minute type spaces on the access drive behind the jail, but that permanent parking would be someplace else for those units.
Okay, because I know that was an issue so I was wondering, it said open and free access for the sheriff, and I'm thinking, are they all going to be parked along there? So it's just, you need to run into your house, drop off groceries, and okay. So I'm good with that. And there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. And I appreciate the amount of work that must have gone in to create this document. And it was very interesting to read, so thank you very much.
And I will just say for we did have a lot of conversations about that the housing units be notified that we do have a generator that will run if the power runs out, as well as, other issues that we'd have. We both have our trash receptacles
right there.
Yeah. So both being really aware of that.
Prior knowledge, is helpful for that. So thank you for addressing that.
Okay. Other board questions or comments on this? This will be set for a public hearing on October 26th, and we'll go from there. So is there a motion to move this forward until October 26th?
One more question.
Okay.
This deals with the access in and out of the parking, out of the underground parking for both the sheriff and the police department. So could you describe to us, Dave, where the options that the Pickens County Sheriff's cars will have for getting in and out of our underground parking area?
Sure. So in normal course of business, the sheriff's staff would access off of Rio Grande onto the drive that goes up into the lot right now, enter into our garage, exit the same way back onto Rio Grande. The two parking garages, the cities and the counties, we all agreed for public safety reasons that for the potential that access might get blocked, for the potential that rugby's going on in the park and there's a lot of cars and a lot of foot traffic, or a soccer tournament, that having another access point out in an emergency was a good idea for both sides. So the agreement allows that the sheriff deputies could go out of our garage, turn into the city's garage, and then exit out behind Concept 600. It also addresses that there is an agreement that the city has put in place about the usage of that alley behind Concept 600 to make sure that the agreement they've worked out with those two homeowners associations is complied with. So we've agreed to comply with that as well. Does that answer the question?
Okay, and then the city police department, would they come up, normally use the Rio Grande entrance?
Correct.
Unless there's an emergency and they need to go out behind the Concept 600 building?
Correct. Yeah.
John?
And I just add one more item to that in terms of emergency response and our ability to have vehicles available. We also did negotiate with the city parking for public safety vehicles on Galena Plaza, so where you see sheriffs and police vehicles currently parked, and that 3 of those would be reserved for county sheriff's vehicles in particular. So we'll actually have 3 different ways to access. Actually, our access will improve from what it is today under this agreement.
And that's critically important. I mean, I love the remodel and the things that have occurred here to improve the plaza and fix the garage roof. But we are a real town, we're a real county, and the response times matter. So seeing that you have some sheriff's officers there is actually a good sight to me, as opposed to saying, oh, we won't see them and we'll make all the infrastructure of a healthy and safe community somehow disappear into the background. So I'm glad to hear that issue is settled and those access will remain for fast, because minutes count in emergency response. Okay, any further questions, or is there a motion to move this?
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution on an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Aspen, second reading to be on October 26th.
I'll second it. My only question is there any sense of urgency of this? Because we had also talked about, if necessary, some of these items could be moved to October 11th at a special meeting.
I think right now, no, the one item that is part of this agreement is actually a project that's already started under the administrative approvals that are in the agreement that's in your packet, and that is the utility relocation project. Everything else really has a extended timeline, I believe, into 2017.
Other than this is the acceptance of this agreement is part of our permit submittal, our building permit submittal.
Oh.
And so having that in that final package is something the city has asked for because it does relate to some permit site planning issues.
So perhaps we may want to look at, John, if that's acceptable, doing a second reading on October 11th and calling a special meeting as part of our work session.
Has there been a notice already?
It says in here October 12th.
October 12th.
We can't notice on the posted agenda. We have to notice it separately in the paper. So if we've noticed for the 12th, then we can't back it up effectively.
So, Jeanette, do you know if there's been a notice?
Notice for the 12th? Yes, there has.
So
Okay.
the 11th is out.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need to make sure all these items are renoticed, obviously, and then I was just looking a little further down the agenda as well on the certificates of participation item, which is a timely item to have a second confirmatory reading. I don't know if we should call a special meeting for the 18th, which would be after the current notice as opposed to in front of it, to be able to move both those items forward, or whether we will need to put our heads and calendars together and see if we could do a special meeting perhaps on Thursday the 13th just for those few items or something. There's a little bit of a challenge there about when we will meet because we've canceled this regular meeting.
The emergency ordinance for their certificates of participation will be in effect. It doesn't need the confirmatory reading. It goes into effect when we approve it on first read.
Yeah, I'm going to wait to hear more from the attorney on that, but I know what you're saying, Patty. That's the whole purpose of.
So, the items that have been noticed for a public hearing on the 12th, if the board isn't going to meet at least in a brief session as a quorum simply to continue those, then we'll have to renotice them to another date anyway. So I don't think there's enough time to run a notice for the 11th of October, coordinating with the paper's publication.
Right.
So I think we're looking at either the following Tuesday or the next regular meeting.
Okay. So that would be, and just again, the hypothetical on the scheduling, if we were to convene only to continue things, we'd need 3 members.
Right.
On the 12th, would those then have to be continued to 2 weeks out from that meeting for the purpose of noticing?
No, you can continue it to any date that you desire at that point.
Okay. And so I guess coming back to the board, it's a work session on the 12th, and would that be timely enough as a special meeting, excuse me, the 18th, sorry me, to do both this item and the certificates of participation?
Well, I was going to bring this up with the certificates of participation. That will push out our intended marketing for those bonds. And so if there is any chance of even doing it, is there time on the 13th if we came in the next day to? No.
The 13th, the Thursday, the 13th, call a special meeting for that day. We would have enough time to notice a special meeting for the 13th.
Yes, it just takes 24 hours to notice a special meeting, and you can continue the hearing on the 12th to the 13th if you want. or we can renotice and proceed on the following Tuesday, the 18th.
I think this is timely. I think we want to move as quickly as possible. Now, Patty had raised the question that emergency ordinance does take effect, but you're saying, and I would imagine the bond markets or the lenders want to know that we've confirmed the second, before they really can market it.
We'll be okay on that one. I apologize, Rachel. I was stuck in the non-emergency mode.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so then the timeliness on this one would be sufficient to just do it on the 18th.
John?
We're having a sidebar on that.
That's okay.
The movement, the meetings is a cause of confusion for it.
Yeah. Just give them a second here.
We think actually if
Final
we could
action.
do it on the 13th, the final action, just to have all our i's dotted and t's crossed,
Okay.
would make sense.
Then, board, we need to look at our calendars and see if we have a quorum who could attend for these two items, not putting all the land use or anything like that on the Thursday, the 13th. Will we have a quorum? Who's available?
I'm available.
I was planning on going to the water meeting in Glenwood that day, but if we could do it at
First-
one end or the other, that's from 9 to 2. If we could do it either early or late in the day.
Okay.
And I could attend part of the water thing and be here.
Sure. Other board members that Thursday? Do you have a RAFTA meeting, or can you,
It's RAFTA in the morning,
so late afternoon? I know about the water meeting as well, Steve, and then frankly, it's drive to Denver that night anyhow for CCI the next day on the 14th. If we could all commit to come in straight at 9 o'clock and do an early morning
They
meeting.
won't be able to.
Oh, no, but we'd have three. We'd have a quorum, and then they wouldn't have to
Yeah,
come up.
I can do it at 9 on that Thursday.
I could do that.
I can do it anytime, whenever you guys want.
Okay, would that be sufficient?
Not at 7 in the
All right.
morning, though.
Thank you. That will actually straighten things out for
That's
other
another
items on our agenda later on as well. So,
Would you like we made a motion, we didn't have a second, I don't think.
second it. And then I posed that question. I open up that can of worms.
yes, yeah, appropriately
You
so,
two
George.
guys over there, I don't know, we're separate, you guys.
Okay, so who was the maker of the motion?
Me.
And so you would modify the motion to have the public hearing at beginning 9 a.m. on October 13th.
I will amend my motion to include that new date.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay.
The agreement, lengthy.
And we'll make sure we get the notice of that special meeting out, and we'll see what else ends up on that agenda as we go through
Thanks,
this
John,
one.
thanks, Jody.
The next item, we have had a request to table to a date uncertain, and that is the application for a new medical retail grow license submitted by Sopris Verde. John, I've never seen a motion for a date uncertain. Just say date uncertain.
No kidding. You
Yeah.
must have.
Yeah,
I never have.
I'll make a motion to continue, or to table to a date uncertain.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. The next item is individual consideration items, public hearing, second reading. The first is an ordinance to purchase property at 123 Emma Road.
Okay, I'll just take a second. Set up here. It's not showing up quite as well as I'd like. Thank you, Rachel. John Peacock, County Manager. We have a few folks in the audience that may also have a few comments as we go through this. We have Nan Sundin from our Health and Human Services Department, Liz Stark, our Public Health Officer, and Gary Shala, who is the Development Director for Mountain Family Health Services. I'll get to that in a second. This is the second reading of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 123 Emma Road for up to $3.3 million. That's subject to our due diligence review on the property. The property in question is located, and I'm going to try and keep the microphone close here, but is located in the Pickens County portion of Basalt. You've got Basalt Avenue, the roundabout, Highway 82, and the property in question is outlined in red here. Our underpass project that we're doing with Basalt is coming across right about here. The property in question is a 15,763 square foot facility. The reason that we're here looking at purchase of this facility is, as we just discussed, the county has embarked on a major project to renovate its existing courthouse plaza as well as construct an addition onto it. During that construction project, we needed to relocate all offices that were in the courthouse plaza. We did rent space at 123 Emma Road, just over 8,000 square feet, to relocate a number of the offices that were previously located in the courthouse plaza building for the term of the construction. Not too soon after we moved in, the property went on the market for $3.9 million. And staff began the process of analyzing both the short and long-term opportunities and benefits of potentially acquiring the property. Whereas here in front of you on first reading, we had identified primarily the short-term benefits of acquiring the property, and that had to do with taking over existing leases, looking at the common area maintenance charges, and the rent charges that the county would avoid. And staff presented to you then, and this hasn't changed, that we believe that there would be, over the 2 years of our existing lease, up to $140,000 in savings to the county by purchasing the building. The question then came for the longer term. Do we just have a fungible asset that we'd look to remarket, or do we have an asset that the county would want to look at repurposing for longer term needs? And we committed at the first hearing to come back to you and make some recommendations as far as what long-term needs might be met. And in your packet, you'll find our primary recommendation. I'm pretty excited actually to talk about at least one of the primary opportunities that we've identified, which would be entering into a partnership with Aspen Valley Hospital and Mountain Family Health Centers to continue being able to provide services, medical, dental, and behavioral health services to our low-income population in Pickens County. The board might recall that in past Board of Health meetings, we had started to discuss the issue and challenges of space for Mountain Family Health Services. We've had a existing partnership with Aspen Valley Hospital, who is currently providing space for Mountain Family Health Centers right across the street, right across Highway 82 from this location on Cody Lane. The hospital currently provides just over 3,000 square feet of space to Mountain Family Health at no rent, at no cost. That has allowed Mountain Family Health to serve just over 2,000 low income, and when we're talking about that, we're looking at folks who are at or below 200% of poverty level. residents in Pickens County with medical and behavioral health services. And we identified really two issues. One is the current population in Pickens County that qualifies for those low-income services, so at or below that 200% of poverty level. Currently, we have about 4,500 people in Pickens County that are at that income level. There's a barrier to us providing more services at our existing location with Mountain Family Health, and that is that there really are not enough existing exam rooms, not enough existing space. That was compounded as the hospital has been looking at its service demands on the hospital district and finding that more and more services through the hospital needed to be moved to the Mid-Valley. And the only viable option for the hospital was really to take more of that space at the Cody Lane location. And so the hospital had notified Mountain Family Health and the county, since we've had a long-standing partnership on this, that after March 2018, they would likely not be able to provide any space for Mountain Family Health at the Cody Lane location. We entered into a series of problem-solving discussions which resulted in a letter of intent that's in your packet. And it's an agreement between Mountain Family Health, Pickens County, and Aspen Valley Hospital that we would recommend to this board should we successfully acquire the property that we're are asking for permission to acquire today. Under that agreement, what the county would be committing to is that upon vacating our space at this location, the temporary office space that we're currently located in, we would enter into a long-term 20-year lease with Mountain Family Health Centers for up to 9,000 square feet of space. Within that, Mountain Family Health Centers would be obligated to an initial lease payment of $150,000 a year with an annual escalator equal to 2% or 1/2 of Denver Boulder Consumer Price Index, whichever is greater. In addition, Mountain Family Health Centers would be responsible for all tenant improvements, which I'll talk about in a second, and utilities and maintenance of their space. The county would take on responsibility for all the common area maintenance, roof, and basic maintenance of the building. The hospital's obligation under this agreement would be to make a payment for facilities to Mountain Family Health Centers equal to $150,000 a year starting when they vacate, with an annual increase of 2% or 1/2 of Denver Boulder CPI, whichever is greater. In addition, both the county and Aspen Valley Hospital currently support Mountain Family Health Centers with operating dollars. We would look at an agreement, getting into a written agreement about our ongoing support on an operating basis. We agree to continue supporting at our current levels. Mountain Family Health Centers, for their part under this agreement, would be committing to all of the improvements necessary. Sorry, let me get to the right page here. In that space to provide 9 medical exam rooms, 4 dental operatories, which we've got a mobile dental operatory, but we do not have a physical space for those services in the valley through Mountain Family Health. 2 behavioral health rooms, an emergency generator as needed, sized to support Mountain Family Health Services. Mountain Family Health Services would also commit to develop ADA access to the second floor, which we currently do not have ADA compliant accessibility to the second floor, and any other improvements necessary to support Mountain Family Health Centers. It's estimated that these improvements would cost up to between $2 and $2.25 million, which Mountain Family Health Centers is committed to raising and providing themselves. In addition, there's other portions of the agreement that would go towards a transition strategy if the physical space is not ready in time for Mountain Family Health to have to exit the Cody Lane site and different terms. This is, I think, a pretty exciting opportunity to not only address an existing need, but provide for the future of these needs in a three-way partnership between Pitkin County, Aspen Valley Hospital, and Mountain Family Health Centers. And so that is one potential long-term use that we think would be appropriate for this facility. There is remaining square footage that would be available. Currently, all of that space is leased. Those leases are due to right now run out anywhere between 2017 and 2021, depending on the entity. We believe that there will be demands for county services to be offered in satellite facilities down valley. And we also believe it may be appropriate to keep some of the locally servicing businesses in place if they so desire to continue doing business there. Staff has modeled, all kinds of different scenarios at this point. Right now, we think long-term there would probably be at least 3,000 square feet that would be appropriate and available for county services in the future. This would be going into the 2019-2020 time frame, allowing for some square footage for some of the existing businesses that are serving the community. We believe that with the mix of private rents and the agreement that we've worked out with Aspen Valley Hospital and Mountain Family Health Centers, that financially this would be roughly a wash. We're adding quite a bit to our facilities projects, but we have revenues coming in to offset some of those expenses. With that, we do have Nan and Liz here and Gary, and I'd invite you to the table to answer questions at this point.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. And please come forward. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here at this meeting today. Board members, do we have questions?
I have a question for Gary just to start off. So the commitment from Mountain Family Development to come up with a capital fundraising campaign, $2.5 million. Has that begun, or when will that begin? And because if we're able to close on this property, I would suspect that when we move out in 2018, you want to be ready to be able to move in and do all the upgrades that are needed.
And just identify yourself for the record as you speak.
I'm Gary Shalla, Mountain Family Health Centers, and thank you. It's a good question. Before I answer that, I just want to say what a wonderful, we talked about other collaborations and win-wins for the community, and this is, I believe, really another win-win for the community. We have, George started the capital campaign. We have a number of grants already in hand to move forward, and for this $2.5 million campaign, we've identified over $6.7 million of opportunity through grants from private individuals, through foundations. So we are very, we're really waiting for this letter of intent so that we can really move forward and really make it more available to the public than we have in the past.
Great, thank you.
Other board questions or comments? Steve?
I'm curious if Mountain Family Health doesn't use the full 9,000 square feet, how would the county use that square footage?
Steve, I think we this opportunity has come at an interesting time, and so we haven't fully vetted that. The board, during budget, will be considering creation of a public health department. That may be an opportunity to use some of the square footage. There are other services that we believe would be beneficial to be offered down Valley, but we have not worked through the logistics. And just to give you some examples, I think it may make sense to have a vehicle registration office open at some point. It may make sense to have building inspection hours down there. It may make sense for us to, all those publicly facing services, to look at satellite opportunities. That's something that upon approval we would be looking at programming over the next couple of years, and as we work with Mountain Family Health to finalize their current and future needs.
Mm-hmm. And would the Mountain Family Health use the upstairs rooms that we have available, that where the attorney's office is now?
Currently, that is the plan, and that's part of what drove the conversation about needing to make that second floor ADA accessible, because as the building is constructed now, it's not. It's just got the two stairways on either side. And so there's a benefit to the county, of course, in that infrastructure being developed too, is that our satellite space or future office space that we deem appropriate in Basalt could be located on that second floor then.
Okay.
Other board, George?
For Nan and for Liz, Nan, you may be able to expound a little bit more on John's comments in terms of the current need and the current ability for Mountain Health to handle that need. And then, Liz, how does community health tie in with Mountain Family? What's the connection between your two organizations?
Can you hear me?
Turn it off, then move it, and then turn it back on.
Turn it off.
Yeah, otherwise it makes a lot of noise on the soundtrack as it scrapes across the table.
Thanks, Gary.
And Nan, this moves really easily to point in either direction of you and Liz.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really, really, really exciting project. I think, I can see John's excitement, and I'm like 20 times more excited than that. We've been talking about the lack of access to health care for low-income people for many, many years here. Physicians have a difficult time taking Medicaid because of the reimbursement rate and Medicare. So now that we know that 25% of our population is living at or below 200% of poverty, I just want to add that those people, that in addition to that, we have a Medicare population that's growing, and it is difficult for physicians to take Medicare assignment. So this is a solution that I think is extraordinary. It provides the integrated health of dental, behavioral, and physical. And it also comes at a time when our residents who are self-employed have to pay 35% more for insurance. This is the beginning of a solution locally to ensure that we have medical care regardless of ability to pay. So I just want to really say thank you to you and to John and Gary and Ross and Terry and Liz. We've been this has been a heavy lift, and sometimes the stars align, and this just seems like perfect timing for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you particularly to John and Gary and Aspen Valley Hospital for making this come together what seems to be quickly. You remember we formed this Access to Care Task Force in the spring of 2015, I believe, and at that point, we had nothing on the table to even go to. So this is remarkable that, as Nan said, things have aligned, and that could be the future for Mountain Family Health Centers, of being that hub of care that we envisioned in a location that can accommodate them. So the relationship that Community Health Services currently has with Mountain Family Health Centers is, we provide a lot of preventative direct services. We don't provide the full scope of primary care, but in women's health and prenatal care, Mountain Family Health Center is a primary referral source for us because the population that we serve is generally uninsured, low-income folks. So we use them as a referral source for primary care. So what we've experienced in the limited space that they've had currently is that our clients aren't able to get in that Basalt location because of the limitations on space. So we felt that as a referral agency. So we look forward to having that continued relationship with them. And then, as you know, one of the recommendations that came from the Keystone Policy Center for the perfect public health structure in our county was that Community Health Services somehow partner with Mountain Family Health Centers in the future. What that partnership looks like today is unknown, but I think once they can get settled in this space and Community Health Services is looking towards other ways to provide, locations to provide the current care that we do, how those partnerships develop is yet to be determined. But I think that there's definitely a future for us to be even more of a partner.
Very good. Good question, George. Other comments or questions? This is a public hearing, and so I will open the public hearing. Are there members of the public here today to speak to this matter? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing and bring it back to the board. I guess I'll make a comment. Oh, Patty, did you? Ready?
I think this is great, moving it forward for many reasons. I think the county's ability to purchase this building makes great fiscal sense as far as renting it or purchasing it, because you never know if somebody could come in and buy it out from underneath us, and then we don't know what the circumstance might bring. And then to have a future plan for the use of this space. I think the public also needs to know that the county is buying a bar, a Subway shop, and a Chinese restaurant. We never really envisioned that.
Buying a lease for those businesses. We're not buying those businesses.
I think it's interesting, and we want to remind the county staff that is now in that facility that they need to come back up Valley as soon as our building is finished. It's pretty nice down there. If those of you who haven't in the public stop by to see the new space, it is actually working really well. It's exciting in many levels, and as you said, it's another great win-win for the community. And we really look forward to seeing the next transition with Community Health and Mountain Family.
Other board member comments?
Move to approve.
Michael's moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion, Steve?
I'm concerned about the parking situation when the Real America property is developed next door. Do we have any idea of how the parking situation will be when that's complete?
So the parking is really governed by, and that whole road coming down is governed through an HOA that both the property we're looking at purchasing as well as the Real America property and other properties are part of. So there's not dedicated parking per se to just for example, Mountain Family Health or what have you. The Real America project will have, our understanding is 56 units available in it. We do believe that both the clientele for Mountain Family Health, and Gary, I don't know if you can comment on this, but in our discussions with Ross, that there's a large portion of the population that they're serving that will be accessing the services through RAFTA. It's one of the reasons it's very, very important for us to find a footprint that was located near a RAFTA bus stop. And similarly, I think we expect that there will be a large portion of the population living in the Real America project that will also be primarily using the public transit for going up and down Valley. Parking, though, is going to be tighter. Frankly, if you're there, if you visit our location right now, early in the morning, there is a lot of traffic. I think we have some enforcement issues with folks parking on that side to access RAFTA instead of parking in the parking lots across the way. I think that will be somewhat mitigated when we have the underpass constructed and we have an active HOA that's actually doing enforcement We also have a lot of commercial traffic, dropping off supplies for the restaurants and the neighboring businesses. Frankly, we'll have to work on how we mitigate for that going forward. I don't know if you, Gary, are prepared to say anything about the clientele. And
one of the things that we, in all of our sites, really take a prime look at is how are our clients going to get there? And at that 200% of the poverty level or below, a lot of these people ride the bus, not only to come up here to go to work, but also then to go home. And it was really important for us with this location that we had that bus stop right there. The fact that not after we started talking, maybe 3 weeks later, we heard about the underpass, just made it even more exciting for us, because really a lot of our clients come that way. There is some parking that we've identified behind the building as part of the space where we're going to put our physicians and nurses, and there's plenty of room there for that, which for us will leave a huge array of parking spaces for those families that do come. And when they do come, they usually come together. So we're not just going to get one person in a car coming to the doctor's office. When they come to see us, they come 4 or 6 at a time, and they make the trip together. So we're not taking up 6 spaces with those 2 or 3 appointments. We're taking up 1. So we have looked at the parking, and we think that it will be more than ample for our needs.
Okay, thank you.
Rachel, can I
Patty,
just tag on to that real
and
quick?
then I see George.
Having been visiting the building a few times and riding the bus, can we look at a more direct access up to the sidewalk and Rafta rather than having to go down through the car wash, by the Quick Mart, the liquor store, across through there? There are some bandit paths in there, but it would be great if we might look at that in the future to see which pathway people, so they can go right up to Rafta to the intersection and cross the street. That would save people from the traffic that is in and about. And it gets pretty crazy over there with the gas station, the liquor store, and the Quick Mart. So that would be something that would be great to look at, John.
It's a great suggestion, Patty. George?
Yeah, I mean, the town of Basalt should be, I think, thrilled with all this new activity with the county relocating, the purchase of this building, and now with the advent of Mountain Family going in there. Aspen Community Foundation just purchased property down to Basalt. There's a lot of development proposals on the south side, and so what I'm leading up to is it's an opportunity, and I think we have to be a player along with the town of Basalt, not to really only address the parking issue, but really the traffic issue that's going to be created at that roundabout and at the intersection of 82, because already at certain times of the day, it's a failure, and the queue just gets backed up, and so we need to work with the town of Basalt to aid them in any way we can to try to find a long-term solution for that intersection.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other board comments or questions? I'll just weigh in then. And while they're not here in the room right now, I really want to extend great thanks to Aspen Valley Hospital, their board of directors, their leadership at this time. They've always been a significant partner in supporting the health through Mountain Family Health, and this both kind of solidifies but renews that relationship, I think, in a great way. Most folks know that we serve both as the Board of Health as well as the Board of County Commissioners, and for many years we've had an initiative of trying to improve the access to dental care, which for children can be incredibly disruptive to their learning and their growth patterns. To seniors can be a precursor to any number of other types of illnesses and disease. And this is going to provide us the space for up to 4 dental operatory rooms. That is huge. That is just simply huge with our growing senior population. We're going to appreciate the efforts that have been forwarded thus far in terms of a mobile dental laboratory, but that's just not quite the same as having a permanent space where you know you can go and have that feeling of a solidity in the facility and faith. And I think as our county survey was just completed of residents, care for mental health issues and behavioral health issues was one that rose to the top of the list. And I'm sure we will continue to see greater integration with this facility, with the services with any number of our other community partners and nonprofits that we continue to work on issues. So this is a milestone. This is something that people will really look back on later. It's been very strategic. I have to offer, and I think our whole board offers, our manager, John Peacock, tremendous thanks for the negotiation between parties and the working out of details and the financial modeling that really makes this possible and makes us a player in solving a great problem. So I couldn't be more enthusiastic than anyone else on the board. The other item that I think Nan just touched on briefly is really worth noting. We are continuing to have extreme struggles with the insurance rates for single-payer, non-group policy type of individuals in our community. And the biggest crunch is those who are pre-Medicare, perhaps from 55 up, 50 up. I'm sure others are having some pretty significant rate difference problems as well. And so we're on the precipice of starting to see a declining rate of number of insured within our community. It's a problem we've been working on for quite a while with Garfield County, Eagle County, and Summit County going forward. And, the concept of making the entire state a single rating district for insurance purposes was rejected by the Insurance Commission. We're all starting to look for what are new answers, what are new ways to approach this. It really, in many ways, comes down to cost containment and so on. But I just will bring this up again perhaps during open discussion, but since it was raised during this meeting, I think it's appropriate to mention. I received some emails from folks who've been working on the issue in the past to say, okay, should we have another forum? Who's going to organize the next forum to let the insurance commissioners and others know what this is doing to our community? People are going without. They're closing their businesses. They're taking work under the table to stay below the thresholds for any subsidy of support. They're moving, and it's going to be very, very hard to attract and keep talented employees and workers and community members here if we can't find some way of addressing this. And so I know we are pretty stressed out, but I'm hoping that through the manager's office, working with counterparts in these other counties, perhaps we can pull a forum together. And I'd like to see it a little different than what we've done in the past, where people just kind of said what their issues and concerns are quite legitimately. But let's invite the CEOs and the boards of the hospitals and the providers within our geographic rating system, Vail Medical Valley Associates, Aspen Valley Associates, Valley View and Glenwood, and let them hear the issues that we're having and our public is having, and start to have a larger collaborative group working on solutions for this. There may be an expanded role for the Valley Health Alliance to start to tackle this on top of the type of work they're doing now. But, it's unfortunate. You solve one problem and another one's cropping up, but we can't let that go very long. It is disruptive to the business, to the economy, and to people's personal lives in ways that are just unimaginable right now. So I'll leave it at that, but it did come up, and I have been thinking that we should be taking a very active role in at least convening the people who may be able to make a difference on this issue. So we've had the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. I will joyfully call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much, and we're really very happy about this.
A good one.
Okay. The next is an ordinance for the acquisition of the Lazy Glen Open Space Bridge easement. Do we have anyone from Open Space and Trails here for this, or do we have somebody else who's going to be handling that issue?
I don't see anybody.
Matt Adelletti
Is on the schedule. Well, let's see if we can get Matt in the room, and meanwhile we'll have Suzanne Wolf come up to talk about and deal with the ordinance accepting covenant for maintenance of rockfall barrier and stormwater facility for Lot 20 Little Cloud LLC.
Hi, Suzanne Wolf with Community Development. Matt Brown is here representing as part of the applicants. This is the second reading for the ordinance to accept a covenant for maintenance of the rockfall barrier and stormwater facilities. I think you're familiar with the property, what I always refer to as the former Reeder property, but end of 2nd Street. You approved their site plan in July. One of the conditions of approval required this covenant in order to complete their site plan review and move forward. So this is second reading. The only issue that was raised at the last meeting was a question about moving forward with the improvements at the end of Second Street. There were concerns about the stormwater impacts on the adjacent property, Ajax condos. And essentially, this is one further step in moving forward with that. Once this covenant is accepted, the covenant and the site plan will record together. It's my understanding that the applicants are ready to move forward with that pretty much immediately. Once those are recorded, they can then submit a permit for that work. They do hope to start work or to complete work, get the permit, and complete some of the grading work and the initial grading in of the driveway and the trail improvements this fall, at which point during construction they would have erosion control measures in place, and then they will be able to revegetate to try and prevent further erosion issues in that area. So hopefully those things can all move forward in a timely manner to deal with some of that this fall.
Okay. Thank you. Patty, your
Yeah,
question?
I appreciate that attention to preserve that stormwater system at the neighbors because it's quite expensive, and that's a affordable housing apartment complex, and so I really do appreciate that, and I'm glad we're moving forward and get these documents recorded as soon as possible so permits can be issued would be great.
Okay. Thank you. If others have no comments, I'll open the public hearing on this. Is there anyone here in the public to comment on this matter? There being none, I will close that public hearing and bring it back to the board for further comments or motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, Steve?
Yeah, I was just remembering the picture of the big rock that was caught in the other barrier up there, and it worked very well. It was actually pretty amazing that that size of a rock could be stopped. So I think it's really good that, you know, we're getting this put in place now, and the means of maintaining it and everything. It's really good for the safety of the occupants there, and even people further down the street in town that could potentially be helped out by this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Suzanne. We're just going to keep moving forward. So the emergency resolution approving an IGA with the town of Snowmass Village. Thank you for your patience, Drew. Try and get your confirmatory readings further up the agenda next time. And so we've seen this yesterday in our work session update a little bit on IT, that the town of Snowmass Village Tower is already going up. We already had first reading on this. It's a emergency resolution, again, because of the timelines with the weather and the construction necessary. You want to give us a real brief overview for the viewing public, and then we'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Drew Peterson, Communications Project Engineer for Pitkin County. This is a resolution to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Snowmass Village and Pitkin County, allowing Pitkin County to build and maintain a telecommunications site behind the town of Snowmass Village Town Hall, which will be protected and maintained on their property by the town of Snowmass Village. The IGA also lists out responsibilities in the future of adding additional antennas, third-party users, etc. This is a crucial component of the digitally trunked radio system that the county is currently establishing. This is the site that will cover all of the town of Snowmass Village, so it's important that they be included in this system as well for a whole system throughout the county. And they requested that this intergovernmental agreement be in place before issuing the building permit for the site, and we hope to have everything built before the winter, so that is the time crunch.
Okay, thank you very much. And let me ask John Ely, this just says on the agenda confirmatory reading, but isn't a confirmatory reading also a public hearing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I would like to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone here to speak to it? There being none, I will close that public hearing and bring it back to the board for questions or motions. Steve?
Just a comment first, and then I'll be glad to make a motion. When I was driving for Snowmass Village Shuttle, there were many times when the shuttle drivers were communicating directly by radio with the Snowmass Town Police. and it really expedited looking for lost people or reporting traffic accidents or various things like that. And that just showed me the benefit of having a really good communication system between various public agencies. And this whole system we're working on developing, including this DTRS communication tower at Snowmass Village, is just one part of that whole system that will allow a lot better communication between the different agencies. So
Absolutely.
I'm really glad we're getting this done. It will make a vast improvement in our public safety.
Absolutely.
And I would move to approve the confirmatory hearing of the resolution and IGA for the DTRS communications tower in Snowmass Village.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Just as we said yesterday at the work session, your work in implementing the enhanced broadband is just amazing, and it's moving forward very rapidly, and we are all quite glad to see that. So thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thanks, Drew.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Okay. We are now going to move forward to the emergency ordinance authorizing issuance of certificates of participation. I see Tom Oken in the room. Tom, the only thing I'd like to update you with before you get started is that because we have canceled the public hearing set for the 12th of October, which we did not realize was Yom Kippur, we have already set a special meeting date for the 13th and can have the confirmatory reading that morning at 9 a.m.
Okay, that's great.
And so just wanted to present this for the public, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So this ordinance, I'm Tom Oken, County Treasurer, and this ordinance authorizes the county to issue lease purchase certificates of participation as a method of financing the Courthouse Plaza construction project. And we've talked about that in the past, using this procedure so that we could issue the financing here before the election, because at the election there's a whole lot of Colorado debt that is likely to be approved. Primarily school bonds, but even locally we have like the Snowmass Wildcat Fire District, I think has close to a $20 million bond issue out there for approval. So we would like to be in the market ahead of the election, selling our financing so that we're not in competition with all this other Colorado debt that is likely to be issued in November, December, January. So that's the reason for it. The structure of a lease purchase here is that we are going to take the courthouse and the jail and lease those properties to a trustee bank in exchange for the proceeds of this financing as an upfront lease payment, are leasing it to the trustee. And then we lease the courthouse and the jail back from the trustee bank over a period of 30 years for the amount of our debt service payments, principal and interest that's due on the financing. And that lease purchase agreement is annually terminable, I guess. You could walk away from it at the end of any year. However, you'd lose the courthouse and the jail. So it's highly unlikely we would do that. Because of that, this type of financing is rated one notch below our general obligation debt rating, which pledges our property taxing power in order to repay it. So we are currently AA1 for our general obligation bond rating, and this is likely to be rated AA2 then. So it's a notch lower. It carries a slightly higher interest rate, but allows us to get out in front of the election. So that's the structure. And we are, the ordinance really just sets parameters around our issuance here. The maximum amount that's set in there is $23,530,000. Where that came from is that is the value of the courthouse and the jail. And so that this transaction isn't significantly under-collateralized, we have to borrow 90% at least of that amount, which is about $21 million. So that's kind of the range we would be borrowing, 21 to 23 million approximately, and that will be determined here in a couple weeks as we get updated costs on the Courthouse Plaza facility and put that together with our other capital plans in the budget and see how much do we really need to borrow. I mean, previously, when we talked probably a year ago in budget, we talked about borrowing less and contributing, I think it was 8 million of fund balance, something like that, into this project. Other capital needs have arrived. You've just approved, $3 million for the purchase of the basalt building. And there are some others in the capital plan that basically will use that cash that we were going to put into the facility, and so instead we'll borrow a little more here for the Courthouse Plaza project.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Other?
Yeah, just to explain the reason for the emergency ordinance. One, we have to do an ordinance because the Home Rule Charter says if you're leasing property for more than a year, it has to be done by ordinance. That means this is an ordinance. Normally, an ordinance isn't effective until 30 days after second reading adoption, which would put us out in November, before mid-November, after the election, before we could actually issue the debt. And we're trying to get out in front of it, get a lower interest rate as a result, and so that's the reason for the emergency.
Okay. Thank you very much. George.
I have a question, Tom. I'm just curious, who valued, how did the value come up to 23.5 for the courthouse and the jail? How was that number arrived at?
Basically, the facilities are valued at the value we insure them at. And then the land was valued by Larry Feit, the chief deputy appraiser for us, assessor, I guess is his formal title, not appraiser, based on the square footage of the property underlying the courthouse and the jail, and at the value of comparable Main Street and behind property. And I think I'd have to look that up, but that came out to $600 a square foot, or does that sound right? 6,006, what was it? Anyway, that's where it came from, and how we value it, and the the rating agencies and the purchasers of our bonds look to that as an adequate method of determining the value.
Additional board questions,
Yeah,
Patty?
Tom, wasn't there a kind of an estimated cost savings for us to do this method of financing versus was it revenue bond?
Actually, revenue bonds would have been slightly cheaper in that they would have carried a slightly lower interest rate, because there's an absolute pledge of,
Right.
in our
So it's
case,
the other way
sales tax
around.
revenue to repay, and we would have more than enough sales tax revenue to always pay the debt service to repay this borrowing. So
that
the
required a
interest
vote,
rate was
right?
going to be slightly lower there. As well, the issuance costs, this is a much more complicated structure. And so we pay a bond attorney in Denver to document this. It requires, the leases,
Right, all the paper.
trust agreement, all this stuff, which is a lot more paperwork than a sales tax revenue bond issue would have. So that would have, in the same market, carried a slightly lower cost, but we would have needed voter approval to issue sales tax revenue bonds. And we also obviously couldn't be issuing until after this election. And all that would probably more than counteract the slight savings. So,
And that, we probably wouldn't be able to do that till after the first of the year.
right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
In a sense, the financing method was determined when we didn't put something on the ballot at the end of August when the deadlines were set.
Right, we'd have to wait for.
And we kind of wade through those factors. Right now, I don't know if you have a range of approximate that you believe our interest rate will come in for on the certificates of participation?
They have run some numbers. I could look them up. Basically, it converts to, I think I put in the memo, our annual payments will be in the range of $1.1 million to $1.3 million. And we originally had budgeted about $1 million, but that was for a lesser amount. So we're still in, we're in good shape there. Have I printed out the latest numbers? No. I don't see them, so I can't give you an
That's
actual
okay.
interest
Yeah,
rate.
I was just going to make the point that, and as we discussed it perhaps back in July, I had said I'm kind of a little more of a bird in the hand than two in the bush type of person, and interest rates can fluctuate wildly based on world events and, potentially even this upcoming election, as people get shaky about those who have committed that, we can just renegotiate the national debt if it gets to be a problem. So, I think we're still going to be at a very competitive rate. I've heard terms around 3% pushed out. That's practically free money as a lot of private investors look at it. And to be able to have our cash available for investment as rates are higher in our portfolio as time goes on, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm very supportive of this. I also said then, and I would believe now, I don't like beginning to dig a ditch or lay a foundation until the money's in hand, and we are already beginning the work. So the sooner the better to know that that's secured from my point of view. Do we have, let's see, this is this first reading, and so the confirmatory reading will be on October 13th during a special meeting. It is not a public hearing now. Is there a motion from the board to approve the emergency ordinance authorizing issuance of certificates of participation to be set for public hearing on October 13th?
Move to approve.
Okay, now I'm going to give that one to Michael, and George, you can have the second. Thank you very much, and thank you, Tom, for your hard work pulling all this together
Thanks, Tom.
for us.
Have fun.
All those in favor, or any further comments? John, did you have?
I just wanted to know, I had a sidebar with Jeanette that we may need to find a quorum to come in on the 13th just to continue some of these items. I'm sorry, on the 12th to continue some of these items to 13th. Jeanette's concerned that we don't have adequate notice time.
So we'll come in on the 12th to continue, and then come in on the 13th to.
So we can do that during open discussion. I just wanted to note that for the board.
Okay. Well, the cancellation of the meeting really did cause additional concerns.
Thanks, George.
Across the board. I will be here on Wednesday morning. I can come in. Can others come in?
We'd have to do it at noon.
Oh, it has to be at noon?
Wouldn't we do it at noon, our regular scheduled meeting time?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you saying the notice should be for the 12th, the motion should be for the 12th, and then continue on the 12th to the 13th, or should the motion be to have it on the 13th?
The motion doesn't necessarily have to state when the matter will come back, because that is dictated by the notice that's already gone out. So the matter is currently set and noticed for a public hearing on the 12th. That meeting, if being canceled, we will have to renotice for another date, period. If we want to avoid renoticing and we can get a quorum to come in on the 12th at the noticed time, the existing notice time, which is noon, we can continue the matter to any date, the next day, the next week, whenever.
Okay. So will we have a quorum?
I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused, because I thought by moving the date up to the 13th, that gave us ample time for new notice.
No, we could do it the following Tuesday, which
The
is
18th.
Yeah, the 18th. That would give us enough time to interact with the newspaper and get it printed and still have enough time after the publication, but can't do it for Thursday, the 13th.
Well, I can come in on the 12th. I mean, we're
Yeah.
already planning to come in on the 12th.
Yeah, that was kind of my original question. Did we want to just have the 2 confirmatory readings on the 12th, no land use, not require any applicants or developers or anyone to come in on Yom Kippur? And we were told just at the beginning of the meeting, no, let's make it all on the 13th. And so now I don't know why we do anything on the 13th if we could just finish those 2 items of business on the 12th and just do those 2 items of business. Although
And continue any of the land use if we need be.
Okay. So, George, would you be able to make the 12th?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, and
I can be here. I just plan to be here anyway.
I can be here, we'll all be here.
So we'll see you on the 12th at noon.
Okay, but what about the
Maybe
one
on
we
the
already
13th at
passed to
9?
say the meeting would be held on the 13th? We just passed one earlier in this meeting to say it would be on the 13th. And now we'll have to come in both days.
Yeah, we can't establish a public meeting date through the motion at this meeting. It has to be noticed pursuant to the code.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's do this one, and then I think it's very important that we go back to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, because we gave them that date of the 13th to come back for the hearing on the Deer Creek property just a couple hours ago.
Days ago.
So is there a motion? I think you already made your motion. Michael made it. We have the date of the 13th in that motion. Can you modify the motion that it will be on October 12th?
yeah.
Okay, and that's acceptable to the seconder.
Second.
It's a friendly amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm still a little confused about these dates, as probably everyone else is. So the 12th, we will just have any or all confirmatory votes, but we won't need any public to attend or have any public comments.
No, they're public
I see
hearings.
it's
No, there are public hearings. It's,
We will have to
If I'm with-
continue each of the public hearings.
unless you want to just flat out continue it, you're not expecting, if someone is there, they can give comment. If they're not, then they'll be available, they can come in on the subsequent date.
George, look at the
So the main ones were the resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Aspen, the ordinance to purchase, and the resolution with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Perhaps we can talk to them. It's been unanimous, it's been supportive, and let them know that they do not need to come in, and just the board would consider it without having Perry Wills called all the way up from Glenwood for that one item on the 12th. And that because we had told them the date of the 13th.
And we told the public who
may care about it.
If I,
We get a chart.
well, let me try this before we draw the matrix up. It seems to me that the goal that the board had was to be able to hold any public hearings on a date that was not a high holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And if that remains the goal of the board, I think the cleanest way to do it is you would still have to meet, but we come in on the 12th and continue those items to the 13th and conduct the public hearings on the 13th, because I think the goal was to not require public to be present at a meeting that they may want to participate in and comment on. Our challenge is twofold. It's the noticing requirements and the requirements to have approvals finalized in a timely manner. So, for example, at the COPs, we can move forward with marketing. I think our goal would be that week of the 17th there. So it may be that the way to meet these needs would be to go ahead and come in and continue those items to the 13th. We can come back in, conduct the public hearings at that time, and whoever wants to comment then can do so.
So does that mean we're off on the 14th, John?
No, we are coming in on.
The 12th we come at noon, the 13th we come at 9.
Do we get any comp time for this?
No, come on, guys.
And I'd be more than willing to do that for the reasons John stated. It's, so we can respect people's religious holidays, and that's important.
Okay. So we will be simply having this hearing on the 12th to move it to the 13th. So the original motion, we're now saying the 12th. I think we've cleared that up. We modified the motion back to the 12th. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thanks, Tom.
And for anyone's information, we will be meeting on noon on the 12th to continue any land use items and any publicly noticed items for final action until a special meeting, which is being called for 9 a.m. on Thursday, the 13th. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
We're going to do two more items and then take a break. The item is the ordinance for the acquisition of Lazy Glen Open Space Bridge easement. I understand now that there's a request to continue that item. That is correct. Open Space staff has requested that item, of course, be continued to October 12th. Thank you. Is there a motion? No, there is a public hearing. Is anyone here to comment on that item? There is none. I will close that public hearing and accept a motion to move the acquisition of the Lazy Glen Open Space Bridge easement into the 12th.
So move.
We don't have to continue it to the 12th if you don't want to. You can just pick the next regular meeting date, which I'm sure was their intention. They just didn't realize we were canceling the 12th, so you can just drop it.
I don't think we're staying long on the 13th.
No, we could move it to the 25th.
26th. Okay, so let's make a motion.
I move to continue it to October 26th.
I will second that.
Any other further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. The next item is the Soldner subdivision detailed submission and final plat second reading.
You're so patient.
Thank you.
I'll talk while I pull up the map. I don't think we have a whole lot to say. So this is the subdivision detailed submission final plat. Suzanne Wolf, Alan Richmond, Stephanie Solder with me. And you had first reading 2 weeks ago. This is a request to subdivide the property into 2 lots. And I don't believe there were any issues that came up on first reading. Again, if I can get there, I'll get you a map, but we might be done by the time I pull it up. But anyway, I don't think there were any issues that came up. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we're recommending approval.
Let's see.
There's the map.
This is a public hearing, second reading. Is there anyone here to comment on this item? There being none, I will close the public hearing. Board members, questions or comments of staff or the applicants? Patty?
Since there are no changes to first read, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Michael?
Is there a second?
No, I was just seeing if anybody else had a comment, but. would
No,
you like to-
he seconded my motion.
I'm sorry. Would you like to second?
Sure. Let me ask Stephanie, what's going to happen with the original Artstead? What are your plans for that?
Well, I hope to come back in the future to talk with the board about possible preservation of the Soldner property and a community asset. That's as far as I can go right now, but that's our hope. I've been approached by the Picton County Historic Registry to put it into the registry. There are lots of complications related to that, but we're interested, and we would like to preserve the property and make it possible for people to be able to use it, appreciate it, well, in the future.
Thank you. I would support that.
Right.
Other comments or questions? Steve?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at this. I missed the previous hearing on it, but I remember being really impressed with your application before, and I support what you're trying to do with your property.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. This is the first step.
Great.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? I just wish you well with the entire project. Thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
The item has been approved, and we really worked straight through there for a while, so we are not going to reconvene until 2:35. Thank you. And we're on break, Grassroots, and you guys can set up as needed for the next item. We'll reconvene at 2:35.
So when are you leaving Monday?
That's what I was. back on the air? Thank you very much. For those tuning in on television, it is Wednesday, September 28th. You're watching the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. It's about 2:35 in the afternoon. Pardon me. And we are now going to go on to a land use item for the Deadwood Ranch CD PUD amendment, lot line adjustment, merger, activity envelope review, and GMQS exemption, rezoning, and code amendments. So this is a big one, and we're going to start with our staff presentation by Suzanne Wolf. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So we'll start just by orienting you. I think everyone has some familiarity, but so here's Highway 82 up at the top of the map. If you're coming up Soapers Creek Road, West Soapers Creek Road, and I'll start to zoom in.
There we are.
This large property here is what we're referring to as Deadwood 1. And then Deadwood 2 is this 35-acre rectangle here. You can see in the background, if I zoom in one more step, you can then see the driveway that comes across this parcel, which is the main driveway now up into the Deadwood Ranch property. Just to go quickly through the background.
Where is the activity envelope on the other lot, the single lot?
We will pull up to that when it comes. But you're pretty close right there.
Yeah, sort of right in here. Here I can.
Is that like is there a slope there, toe of the slope?
In this area? Would that be accurate, Mitch?
Yeah, that's about, yep.
So it would be beyond where the driveway takes off on the left as you're going up, where this driveway is, or does it extend across from the new driveway?
I could, if you want, I could pull this up and show you.
In their presentation, I think they can cover that. So.
Where does that driveway continue to? Whoops.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, we'll get there. So.
Suzanne, there's another development past the driveway continues, goes over
this driveway. I'm sorry, you're saying where, Patty?
Yeah, follow the driveway along and cross the creek.
The driveway, so this is the area, if you can see, obviously, where this was a construction. This was where the ranch manager's residence is now built, and one of the barns has been built. Then you keep going, where you cross the creek is where the historic buildings are located on the other side of the creek. And then this continues up to the area where the activity envelope
okay, so
is
that's
proposed.
at the end of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, so again, for lack of a better way to refer to them, the Deadwood 1 parcel, or the Deadwood Ranch, as we've referred to it in the past, is a property that has gone through the CDPUD rezoning and approval in the past. It was rezoned to CDPUD in 2010, and we adopted a CDPUD plan for the property that allowed for 2 single-family residences, 2 caretaker units, and 19,960 square feet of barn floor area. That has been amended a couple of times, so this has been in front of you where there were some changes related to the historic buildings, and a few other things. So we've gone through a few rounds of amendments. We did do a site plan review in 2014 for these buildings, the ranch manager's residence and the barn. There's one more building to be built in this area, but 2 of the 3 have been built to date. So if you need me to, I can go into more depth on the background on that. But this property is currently zoned CDPUD and has a CDPUD plan approved for it. The separate Deadwood 2 parcel is a 35-acre parcel. It's part of what was originally the Turley-Amos tracts. They came in and got approval in 2009 for, when I say they, a prior owner of the property obtained approval of an activity envelope on this property. The parcel's 35 acres. It would accommodate by right a 5,750 square foot residence, also potentially ag buildings, 4,000 square foot barn, other exempt ag buildings. So that they just have an envelope approved for that at this time, but that's the standing approval on that property. In front of you today, and this has been kind of a long time in the works. I think probably everybody's sort of heard it was out there that we were talking about amendments. The applicant's been talking to the caucus for longer than they've been. I mean, they were talking to us, but we suggested they talk to the caucus even before they brought an application in. So there have been many conversations about this for quite a while, and I'm still kind of amazed that we're finally just getting to you all to discuss this, but we're just getting to you now to discuss it. But the requests that are in front of you, just to go quickly through them, is to merge the Deadwood 2 parcel into the Deadwood 1 parcel. So we would combine the two. The Deadwood Ranch parcel is currently 344 acres. That 35 acres would be added in. So this lot line would be eliminated. This would be brought into the CDPUD plan for the Deadwood Ranch parcel, or the Deadwood 1 parcel. That requires it being rezoned to CDPUD to be able to join in under that CDPUD plan. So that's the rezoning that's in front of you, is to rezone this 35-acre parcel to CDPUD. The applicant has proposed to not develop what would be allowed otherwise on the 35-acre parcel, to eliminate that development on that parcel, and is requesting to transfer rights associated with that up onto the Deadwood Ranch parcel. And so that's some of the amendments, code amendments, as well as CDPUD amendments in front of you, relate to the ability to transfer floor area rights, basically, onto the ranch.
So, Suzanne, he's not eliminating the right.
He is, right. I mean, he's asking to transfer the floor area rights and not develop in the approved location.
George?
Is that unusual to do?
To transfer the rights?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a provision in the code currently that allows for a transfer of a development right. The way the code's written today, and the way it has been used twice, is to actually use that right to build an additional house on a property that is adjacent to, in common ownership. To be specific, the first time the code was amended to create that was for the Flying Dog Ranch property up Woody Creek, where in order to preserve the south parcel, the south meadow on the south side of the road, we moved the development right associated with that into the main area of the Flying Dog Ranch, in that case to legalize an existing residence that had been built illegally.
That was a conservation easement.
That was a piece of the whole of that whole deal. At the time, our code does not require it requires a deed restriction extinguishing the rights from the main, the fathering parcel, and acknowledging that they have been moved to the other piece. The conservation easement was another piece to that whole, I think, puzzle, I guess, of the Flying Dog Ranch. The other time it's been used was up for the Costner property at east of town, just before the Winter Gate, where there was a piece of property across the highway that had a development right associated with it, and that development right was moved across the highway to where other development was already occurring. So that is an existing provision in the code. In this case, they're not looking to utilize it for a new residence, but they're looking to be able to utilize some of those floor area rights to move. So, but that's, gives you some sense of how a provision that does exist and is similar to what they're requesting. Let's see. So there are obviously code amendments associated with this to accomplish what they're proposing here by trying to transfer those rights. And then there's a request to relocate activity envelope 1, which is the principal activity envelope. And I know they'll have better detailed maps for you, but also I'll just say that's a relocation of the farthest envelope up that driveway. And they also wanted to do some revisions to the envelope that's kind of in the middle of the ranch here, which encompasses the historic buildings and where they were have anticipated some of their agricultural buildings, sort of in that central area of the ranch. So there are just a few envelope amendments proposed as well. The Planning Commission considered the application on March 15th and July 19th. They recommended approval of, as recommended by staff at that time, by a vote of 6-0. I'm kind of in front of you today. We noticed we were ready to move forward. After the P&Z, the applicant has kind of continued to look at their proposal and see if where staff in the P&Z recommended approval did not fully support what the applicant is requesting. So to some degree, we're here today to present the project, present the various iterations of the project as proposed by the applicant, as supported by staff, and a further request for a potential proposal related to it, and get your take on this so we can go back and, as you can see today, I don't have a code amendment ordinance in front of you. I don't have a rezoning ordinance in front of you. So it has been noticed. It is a public hearing today, but there are obviously several pieces that still need to proceed for this to move forward. But we felt like it was worth getting this in front of you today to start to have the discussion and see where you stand and where your level of support is for the project.
Well, and the other thing I caught from the memo was that this has changed since the last time the caucus saw it and the P&Z saw it, and it's a chance by continuing it to take it back to both of those groups for review, or at least the caucus for review.
I think I would be looking for direction from you if you felt if you would like that to occur. I mean, definitely the changes that are sort of proposed kind of at last minute here, just came into staff. I mean, we've had a few discussions, have not been through that process. Again, I can speak more to, where I think,
Can I just add to that? And Open Space and Trails and AVLT, they have not seen the new design? I mean, would we not have to ask them for their support if we're changing something that they've already agreed to and we're changing it?
My take there, I mean, we can certainly send it back to them. Their issues are not tied into the amount of floor area that is requested on the ranch. And that's really what it boils down to in terms of, how this is going to move forward. A lot relates to how much square footage is going to be accommodated on the main ranch.
We can talk about that when we talk about the continuing.
Yeah,
one, 'cause I think
yeah,
that might
we can definitely hit it.
Michael?
Suzanne, so I'm used to hearings where we're asked to approve something. Well, what you're sort of outlining is an exploratory hearing, which we don't normally have.
I can present to you, Michael, what staff's and the Planning Commission's recommendations were up until a couple of weeks ago. It is unusual. And if, again, we could just say, no, we want to go back through the process now and have them get vetted through those other steps. Or we can, go forward. I mean, we have a clear, recommendation that was presented to the P&Z and what was supported by the Planning Commission. And I can be clear about what that was.
Yeah, well, hold on, Patty, Michael, and then.
Well, I mean, it just seems unusual. So we could consider what up until a couple of weeks ago was the plan.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Correct.
And
but you still want to get our temperature on the changes. So that's something that typically you deal with and then come to us. I'm sort of uncomfortable with this procedure.
Yeah, I have a little sense of that as well. I see it a little as if they came forward and said, here's a hearing on this plan that's been through P&Z and the caucuses, and then at the table say, well, we'd like to make these amendments to that plan and ask us to change the ordinance that would have been here and to change our approval. And we'd say yes or no to the various changes since the last plan. And that would be a similar way of taking our temperature. I mean, it would be a similar way of approaching it. I don't know what the sense of the board is. Patty and then George?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to hear what the plan was, and I'd rather hear what's the plan is, and, but I don't know how the caucus or P&Z feel about the plan as it now is.
What about staff?
Yeah, so it is a little confusing, and I'd rather be more efficient with everybody's time here than to have us go through this and then have it come back totally different. Based on recommendation to P&Z and the caucus. I mean,
George, did you have a comment?
Well, two things. One, it almost seems like it would be more appropriate in a work session.
I'm not sure once you're in the process as a approval, you can do just a work session.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's fine. But my other question is, regardless of you have staff's recommendations, so if we're going to continue this, it's important to know what the recommendations are, because obviously the applicant is trying to make an adjustment to those recommendations. But with those recommendations that staff and P&Z are making, does that mean that there has to be a change in the land use code?
Yes.
And then how does that process happen then?
The only thing that's missing now, I mean, we've with the P&Z and the applicant, I mean, all along we've discussed that there would need to be code amendments to change, and we've discussed what those would look like. I have not drafted them into a code amendment format at this point, and that will require an additional notice for the ordinance. But I mean, we've always talked about the different types of code amendments that had to, occur to accommodate this proposal that's in front of you.
But does that code amendment have to go before the P&Z?
The P&Z has discussed, again, the code amendments have always been a part of the discussion. Again, it's just when it goes into ordinance form where we bring it forward, formatted based on the code sections and go, we're amending these pieces, specific pieces of the code.
So the P&Z is supportive of the code amendment, whatever that is.
I guess I think Rachel, the way Rachel described it, maybe is the best. Is I could have come before you today if Mitch hadn't showed up a couple weeks ago with some changes, we'd have been before you today with, based on the Planning Commission's recommendation in July, with a resolution, an ordinance of the rezoning, and an ordinance with code amendments in front of you. Mitch walked in 2 weeks in advance, rather into the meeting, to try and say, here's some other thoughts for us to consider as we try and move this forward. So that's what's kind of gotten thrown into the mix, and why I decided I don't know that it's worth drafting code amendments based on where we were with the P&Z. If we can have a further discussion about some ideas that have been thrown out and see if that gets incorporated or not. Or if I'm back to where I was on July 19th with the P&Z and staff, and I'll draft code amendments based on that recommendation.
it's very confusing.
It is, yeah. I won't deny that.
Let me ask John, what's your sense of how we should proceed with it?
The 12th or the 13th?
Not the 12th.
Don't go there.
Well, I guess I'm more in line with the comments that you and Rachel and Patty have made, because typically speaking, before you amend the code, you need to have an affirmative statement from P&Z, either recommending it or one way or the other, and a set development plan, which my understanding is has refined itself into a position now that it's fixed. Right? It's just that this final iteration of the development plan wasn't passed through the caucus. Is that correct?
Or P&Z.
Or P&Z.
Yeah.
There's a further change that has not been gone to the caucus or the P&Z.
So
I don't know if the changes are as drastic as maybe we're thinking they are, but
They are changes.
they are changes, yes. And if I may, the last thing we wanted to do is make anyone uncomfortable or set up a hearing where everybody's confused as to what we're doing. We were just really trying to respond to all the input we'd gotten. Not come here with, no, this is our proposal and we don't care what we heard from everybody up until now. So we were really trying to work with the process to better the proposal not just from the applicant's perspective, but from what we'd heard from the caucus, from staff, and from the P&Z, to try to get more in line with the direction that everybody had been giving us. So, yeah, it took a little while to put it together. And our thought, at least in talking with Suzanne, was why draft specific language for a code amendment now if we're going to get to the board and you're going to say, this is crazy, we're not interested in it, period. The whole concept doesn't make sense and we don't like it. So the thought was maybe if we discuss the concept, see if there's any agreement that it's worth pursuing, then we could put together the specific language of a code amendment and bring that back. But again, if you're not comfortable proceeding, the last thing I want to do is push.
The thing you need, if the board wants to entertain that type of approach, the thing you have to be careful with is that your ultimate decision is based on something that's in front of you that you're actually moving, whether a code amendment or a development approval and so forth like that. So it's a little dicey when you say, yeah, I like your idea, but then when it comes back to you after a public discussion or whatever, you might rethink it. You have to be cautious that you're not making a final decision now, that you're waiting for something else.
If I could suggest, why don't we hear the proposal as it was approved by Planning and Zoning and supported by the caucus, and understand that, and then Rich, you can explain what potential amendments you'd like to bring in that you believe further the goals that both P&Z and the caucus set out for you, with the refinements as you described them. And then we continue the item, and you can take those changes to P&Z and to caucus and come back to us. And we not weigh in whether we like the changes or not the changes. But at the very least, I think we're here today. Future agendas are going to get more and more backed up going into the fall. We should at least hear the proposal as it was presented that was approved by P&Z and go from there.
What I'm hearing, Rachel, is that Mitch is here sort of doing a temperature check and is looking for some input. And so you're suggesting we shouldn't be able to provide input.
Well, I was taking the advice of the attorney,
No, I understand.
which says,
But you just don't want to commit yourself to something, and then if the caucus or P&Z says something else, you want to be free to reevaluate your position type of thing. So it's kind of a loosey-goosey aspect going forward.
Yeah, again, the way I've seen it unfold so many times is P&Z's approved this, staff recommends this, we hear a full 2-hour presentation on a complicated matter, and then the applicant says, well, we'd like to make this change and add this condition or eliminate that condition, and we change it further at the table. And it could have come to us that way. And it's not. So to the extent we can say, we could give the direction that says we would like to see the original proposal only at a second reading and continue it to that, or we could continue and just a further date and say, keep shopping these around, let's see what the other people think, without commenting that we support or don't support the potential amendments.
And the only other wrinkle is based on Mitch's comment just now is that if the changes are in fact the recommendation that was received by the caucus and P&Z, and you're simply implementing what was asked, then that's one thing. If you're changing the proposal around
for other purposes,
for other things, you thought it through, and there's a better way of skinning the cat. So
Kind of in between. It's not exactly what they said. I'm not going to try to tell you it's something it's not.
Okay.
It's the overall discussion and concerns we heard, we found, and the points that were brought up and the thoughts and the concerns we tried to address. But we didn't do it by saying, all right, we'll just do what you said. So
okay,
it's not a black and white.
George and
Yeah,
Michael,
for me, it doesn't make sense to hear the original proposal when the applicant wants to make some changes.
Okay.
We're just sort of wasting time in a sense. So I would rather see the applicant work with staff, come up with their proposal
Final plan to us.
and come back to us when it's ready for discussion.
Can I ask, would you like it to then go back to caucus and P&Z? Because my concern is I don't want to be nodding my head for code amendment that would then go back to P&Z and they'd say, well, the board kind of already approved it.
No.
Because we have to base our approval on their recommendation of the code amendment as written. And so I don't, it's kind of like approving something and waiting on their water rights, and then they go to court and say, hey, we got an approval, we have to have the water. I don't want to be.
We're not approving, well, I'm saying we're not.
He's saying
approving
send it back, and Patty is asking, do you believe in sending it back and before it comes to us as this is the proposal, period? It's not the modification of
And
the
it should
other.
go to planning and zoning and caucus.
Right, just as any normal
And then
land
come
use
back.
It's a
application.
process. I don't want anything to come back and kick either side in the teeth.
And then, as you said, Rachel, usually, not usually, but there are times when the application comes before us, and then we'll start to tweak
There'll
it,
be
add or
modifications.
delete, and at least we know everyone knows where the starting game is.
Okay. And does that seem to be the sense of the board, that this should be continued until such time that you have finalized your proposal and run that through the caucus, at the AMA caucus, and planning and zoning, so that they've had a chance to look at the code amendment as well as the final proposal that you would like the board to eventually approve? Okay?
That's where I'd like to.
I think that's only right.
Okay. That sounds
Good reading, though.
I think we have enough to talk about without us sitting here and trying to argue over a process. So if that's the process everybody's comfortable with, then yeah, that's.
okay. Yeah.
I'm not
I'm sorry
sure-
you've sat here throughout the day waiting on this gentleman. I had no idea.
Oh,
he
no,
was
that's
gonna
the way
come
it
to
goes.
this.
And I apologize for bringing
Oh, that's
confusion
okay.
forward to you. But I guess because this has been noticed,
They have to have a public
I'm not clear what our timing going forward will be. But I would maybe say, I think you have a meeting on the
26.
26th, and there's a meeting the week after that, too. The November meetings move.
Because of the holiday?
Yeah.
I was thinking that first meeting in November, maybe, 2nd? Maybe just as a placeholder to continue it to that date,
Sounds
and
good.
we'll see. Then I can figure out when we can fit in the caucus and the P and Z.
Okay. So I would, this is a public hearing. I believe I need to open the public hearing to see if there's anyone here to comment on this matter. And if
Close
there
it
is
or
anyone, I will close the public
No, you need
hearing.
to continue the public hearing.
Well, I can reopen it at the next meeting. Do I have to continue the public hearing, or do I?
Typically, it's continuing it because we're not, when you close it, that's the end of comment and then the record.
I will correct myself, and I will continue the public hearing until, we're looking at November 2nd. Is there a motion from the board to continue this item till Wednesday, the 2nd of November?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Michael made the first, Patty seconded. Any further discussion? Again, apologies. All those in
Fine
favor
watching
say
it.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Very good. The next item is going to be the AML Investment for LLC 76 Placer Lane request to reconsider the resolution approved on 9/14/16. Give these guys a second or two to clear out.
Thank you again. Sorry if we.
That's okay, no problem.
We're going to confuse you enough.
We will be so well informed by the time you come back.
And it will be a perfect plan by the time we see it.
I hope so. I think we're getting there. We really are.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I got
Good to see you.
a different tea than I thought I was getting. You push the buttons.
Oh.
It's okay. Which one did you get?
I got the peach tea, and I don't like the sweet tea. I like.
I don't like those artificial flavors.
Unsweetened or just the green, not the
Okay.
sweet enough.
Sweet green.
Here we go. Suzanne?
I like that. Yeah, I do too, but this is. Ooh.
So I understand the owner, Andrew Lessman, is on his way, but his attorney, Chris Bryan, and Ryan Bugtavine, who was here at the last meeting with you, the landscape architect. This item was in front of you 2 weeks ago. This is a property on Placer Lane. There's an issue about some vegetation work that had occurred without permits, so we were bringing them forward for a restoration plan. One of your conditions of approval related to providing a restoration progress report provided biannually and basically requiring a 20-year term to ensure survival of the plants used to restore this area. The applicant has requested, asked for you to reconsider this condition of approval. They'd like to be able to present argument to you that was not presented at the last meeting with regard to that condition specifically. And if you're amenable to a reconsideration, originally I had suggested October 26th, but I did check with John Ely. He feels this was done at a public hearing last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, that we should renotice. So I think we could pull that off for that November 2nd meeting. So that would be a different date, and I don't know if you've been able to confirm if that date works or not for the applicant. But I guess we don't necessarily have to set that date today. We can figure that out internally if you're willing to reconsider.
Okay.
Can I have a point of clarification, too?
One second. John, let me ask you a question. We agreed to a reconsideration this morning that was brought up, or shortly after noon, that was brought up through a public comment process. And with the public comment, we heard from someone requesting that and why. We made our decision. On this sort of request that's been presented more formally through staff, is it appropriate for the requestor to address the board?
Actually, there was a request from the property owner, and it was communicated, well, via email is what I saw. I'm not sure if there was a hard copy that was physically mailed, but the request came in from the property owner, in particular to the regards of the how is it described in the resolution, the continuing period of review of the revegetation efforts.
Well, I'm just saying that since it's on our agenda as this, does it, as opposed to how it was brought in this morning, in these sort of hearings, is it appropriate to have the applicant state why?
Oh, I see.
And, you know.
Discretion of the board.
Okay. Well, I suppose we'll go forward and hear those explanations before we begin board discussion.
Can I do my point of
Yes,
clarification?
please. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, the biannual review and the maintenance of the new vegetation, were they both, they were both for 20 years. The biannual review would occur for 20 years, as would the monitoring of the progress of the revegetation.
That was our understanding. Of the
So both for 20 years. Okay, just, that was a clarification that Jeanette and I had been talking about.
Thank you. And so, please, if you'd like to continue and present your requests and why there should be a reconsideration. We have to first determine that we'd like to vote to reconsider, and then a date certain is set for that actual hearing. We don't actually have the hearing at the same time that we've reconsidered, agreed to reconsider.
I understand that. My name's Chris Bryan. I'm a lawyer in town. Andrew Lessman has joined us. He's the property owner. And I'm here with Ryan, who you met from the last September 14th meeting. I want to thank the commissioners for agreeing to entertain this request. I've had a chance to view the video and look with some scrutiny at the proceedings that occurred before this board. And my concern is, and I think I speak on behalf of the owner when I say this, that the facts might not have been presented to you in full. There seems to have been some concern that there was a clear cutting or wholesale tree removal on this hillside, and that's simply not the case. So and I understand that procedurally we're not here to re-argue the merits of that today. We're here to ask for a reconsideration. What we would like to do is have the reconsideration hearing so that we could present information that you might find useful, and we could also analyze the issues and the penalties as this board has characterized them moving forward. We understand that that would need to be publicly noticed for, I think, a November 2nd hearing, and so we would ask that that request for reconsideration be heard. Neighbors or other interested members of the community could come to that, and we might have a more fulsome discussion about this particular property, the activities that were done there, and what we believe a proper mitigation plan should encompass.
Okay. Any board comments or questions or thoughts on that?
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
And I'll second. That was very clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Comments, George?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also like to have, as part of that presentation, an outside expert, a forester or
someone that could provide
Arborist.
some additional information besides just from the applicant's point of view.
Okay, and we can task our community development office with that perspective, to bring us that perspective into the meetings.
Excuse me if I might, Jason Jones was previously on site as arborist, who would probably be willing and available and has ample experience on site.
And I believe Mr. Jones was a participant at your September 14th meeting.
I think what we're,
Michael,
I think
please.
what we're asking for is our arborist. That's all.
Choose who you would like.
Okay, thank you. We will certainly take a look at that, and I think we're looking for healthy revegetation that endures over time, and we'll see where that goes. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We will have a reconsideration hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for rushing down.
We now do have open discussion. I think John Peacock
Thought we were going to be hours.
anticipated that we would be gone for quite a while for that last land use hearing and this item.
I'll get it real quick.
So I do not know if he had any other new open discussion items, but if our board has them, we can convey them through John, Ely, and Jeanette, and ourselves. Steve, please.
I have one item. I was given a water user's guide for protecting flows in Snowmass Creek. It's the final version. Chelsea Congdon Brundage is distributing it to all the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board and any interested citizens. And she asked that I pass these copies out to the BOCC members. So
great.
you'll each have one. So I'll just hand those out to you.
Okay. Thank you. It's a good work.
He's not answering this phone.
John, I don't know, have you sent John Peacock a little quick email to tell him that?
I just tried to call him.
He just did.
I just called him, but I'll try.
Okay. Other board open discussion items? Well, I would mention the one concern or request that I mentioned during the purchase of the Stubbies building discussion, that I think it'd be very valuable for us to have and start convening a forum or symposium about how do we contain healthcare costs in our community, and what can we do about the long-term rising insurance rates, and what perceived to be, at least as put out by some folks, as to be a lack of willingness to engage in group plans by many of the doctors and hospitals in our area, because they perceive they don't have the competition based on physical proximity and have a little more of a captured audience here. There was a very interesting article in the Vail Daily put out by a fellow who's been working on these issues in the Eagle County about the liquid net assets of Vail Valley Medical Associates nonprofit being over $240 million at this time, and that their charges for use are so far out of line with any other rates in the area that that's at least one of the drivers that we're seeing of our very high rates in this region. So I'll just leave that there, but I do think it'd be important. We've attended some of these in the past, but I think we need to do something to get beyond just telling the insurance commissioner that the rates are unacceptable, because 3 years of doing that hasn't gotten us very far. And so that's my only open discussion item. Do we know?
I just sent him a text, and I tried to call him.
Okay.
Jeanette, can you, somebody whip him off an email?
I'll do an email.
I sent an email just a while ago.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Jeanette, do you have?
Oh, no, I just sent them on.
Okay.
As always.
Folks, I don't know if John's going to have any last-minute open discussion items. That's kind of usually what happens. Things have cropped up during the day. If you'd like, we could take a 5-minute break until we find John, and then see if any open discussion. If he doesn't, we can go straight back into the executive session.
Do we have a space for executive session? Do we know?
I had mentioned it to John yesterday to make sure we had
It's the
some.
same, I saw Kathy Chandler, or Kathy Chandler. I was going to say Kathy Chandler Henry.
Henry.
And she said the same room down there on the first floor in the corner.
Okay. Here's some pamphlets for you guys. So let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene. And if we haven't heard back from John, then he will have just missed open discussion. Thank you, Gressroots, putting us on break. John, you'll have to give me the citation because I don't have, okay. Welcome back. Our board is now going to go into executive session for the purposes of,
This would be for the purpose of a discussion with council regarding a request for a change in water use under conservation easement.
To which the county is the beneficial holder, as well as an update on the Lanedo 12 litigation, both pursuant to CRS 42-4, 402, 4B.
okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We're now in executive session. Grassroots, you can go home, and thank you very much for today. Michael, we were able to confirm that John had no open discussion, and all we did was just go into executive. So now we go over to that meeting room, see how many others. Awkward. I can tell it's getting awkward. Thanks. Bye. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm back. I decided to stay with you rather than go down.
Yeah, I thought just because there was 2 or 3 things,
Yeah.
I got them fixed.
No problem.
But I really,
Whatever makes it easier for you.
I mean, you would totally understand.
Whatever makes it easier for you makes it just fine.
And I appreciate the extra pair of eyes, believe me.
This must be Jones. But I take it from him, we think. Did you ever meet President Charlie? He was our mailman. What is he? You're kidding me. Oh, no, we're business. Was he, you know? Tracy was just, we
all think we have problems, but we still have a pulse.
Tracy's freaked out because Gordon has seizure disorders. And she's like, she's always worried that he's going to be climbing up on something and have a seizure. Well, she's like, I got to find out if Teddy was his cause of his seizures. She needs some more information. I'm like, oh my God. Could you hand me that piece of paper that Michael left? I gave him a copy and I'm not going to.
Send it here.
I don't have a computer. You can have it. Pass it around the office down there. They will love it.
Okay, I will.
That is really cute.